Welcome, friends. Just gonna give it a few seconds. Hey, y'all, just going to let a couple more people join. We're going to be talking about EthOS today, which is a really cool protocol that I'm excited to chat with you. Ethereans Community, can you test your speaker?
Hello, hello. Can you hear me well?
Yes. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, guys. I'm Rudy from Ethereans Community. I'm one of the 3 co-founders, and we are also an official EthereansOS delegations. But we're going to be talking about delegations a little bit later, in case you guys haven't heard about it, and we'll explain you what it's all about.
Yeah, awesome. And we're going to have JPN Meme Lord is coming to talk, and I believe Max Flyer, a couple other people from the Ethereans community. So just give me one moment. So yeah, EthereansOS is like my favorite kind of DeFi protocol that I feel like people don't know enough about. That's how I often describe it. Once we get Max and OnCyber in, we can start talking about it. So JPN is up. Hey Slinky.
What's up? This is David here. I'm from the Cypher Party. Max is on the Cypher Party account, so he's here. You can invite him up.
Okay, yeah. Awesome. Sounds good. So yeah, let's just do a quick intro maybe of if you want to introduce yourself and explain what Cypher Party is.
Yeah, so Davey in Discord. Cypher Party is a delegation, and it's currently the only builders delegation. So we have some funds, and we're basically just using them to do our own kind of internal grants for any sort of development. It's just kind of a general. We have some funds, and we want to fund some development using Ethos tools. Cool. You just go in the Discord, and there's like a million brainstorming ideas. Max right now is working on like a decentralized blogging platform.
Nice.
So that's super cool. Well, and then like,
cool.
It's kind of just like if you want to represent another DAO, you can come in and it's just kind of a little hub for builders, represent your DAO, just kind of a general thing. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I'm happy to have you here. While we get started, I'll just give a quick intro. I'm Gabagool. I am the founder of Information Token, a DAO, and generally speaking, just spend my days doing stuff in DeFi and NFT world. And I'm here today with some community members and delegations from EthereansOS. And if you're not familiar, I thought we would just go over quickly EthereansOS and what the kind of general protocol is. So maybe I'll just start by asking like Rudy and Max, like if you guys want to give a Rudy and Slinky, if you want to give a quick overview of EthOS. I know that there are 4 protocols that are kind of the foundation layer of Ethereans. EthereansOS is described as operating system for decentralized development on Ethereum, which I think is a really interesting framing of it. But there are these 4 kind of pillars: factories, items, organizations, and covenants. And I think it's really important to understand all 4 of those to get into kind of what this set of tools can do. So maybe just to start off, like, can you describe what factories are? Because I think that's like really the basis of everything happening on EthOS. Rudy,
Slinky, you want to go for it?
Yeah, I'll go for it. Give me one second. I'm going to drive through.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's what I understand. So EthereansOS is this set of tools, right? And factories are basically it's code that has been kind of audited, and it's a set of smart contracts that can be built upon. So it's a code base, really. And just like, I don't know, the Sushi Swap Master Chef contract is kind of like a safe and verifiable contract, factories are safe, audited, and they can be cloned and customized by developers. And so they form like a really important base of development that anyone can come in and build on top of. Is that kind of like a basic?
Yeah, I think that's pretty on point. I remember, like, in the early days of DFO Hub, one description of the protocol was like an on-chain GitHub.
Yeah,
and so I think this is kind of like where that evolved into. And factories, it's more of like a general programming paradigm that's used in other, not just like crypto, but in the crypto sense, yeah, I mean, you want to keep everything on chain. I mean, ERC20s, for example, people just kind of like copy and paste the code from OpenZeppelin or whatever. But there are like factories that exist already, like the Uniswap. Like Uniswap pools are a factory, right? Like you call like the factory and it like creates a new pool contract, and that it's like that pool contract, and so you
right.
can't. When you deploy a new pool on Uniswap, like, you're sure that you're getting like, a verified Uniswap pool.
Right.
And so in that same kind of modular way, you can kind of build like a repository of whatever you want, really. And then, if you want to pull from those factories or create new factories or whatever to build up a protocol, you can implement each one of those factories and make it like a modular protocol, and all of these things are voted for. Voted for by the organization.
So I think like sometimes with EthereansOS, like there's so much going on, it can be a little bit hard to understand. But I think that basic idea of factories being like a code base that is trusted and verifiable and can do certain things is really important, because this is kind of the basis of this entire operating system that ideally or hopefully people will be building on in the future. And I think it's a really powerful kind of tool. I also just want to mention JPN, Meme Lord, and Cypher Party. I believe that's Max. Both joined us. Do you want to just quickly give introductions of who you are, what your involvement with EthereansOS is, and maybe, just start there.
Hello, guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Nice to find you. My name is Max. I'm the original creator of the Cypher Party, but we are many people. We are a delegation. This group born as a delegation inside EthereansOS. I think if you want to understand the EthereansOS, you must first make one step back and ask yourself, what is an operative system? The problem is that we are used to operative systems like Windows or like Mac OS, okay? And usually the computers are individual machines. In fact, we call them PC, personal computer, okay? Ethereum is a collective computer. So EthereansOS is very likely the first try in history to build something that is not an operative system for an individual on an individual computer, but is an operative system for a collectivity on a collective computer. Okay, so this is the first point. Basically,
so just to summarize that, so an operating system like Mac OS is allowing someone to interact with a single computer, but this is an operating system for many people to interact together on the collective computer that is Ethereum.
Exactly. So keeping in mind this, you must ask yourself what happens on a collective computer. So on a collective computer, the revolution of the group has a series of implications, like collective tools. Example, Word or Photoshop are individual tools. Okay, tools you use alone. On Ethereum, we have this concept of decentralization that is not only a problem of protection from a central power, is also a way to interact together and to have collective tools, okay, tools where you do things together. So the problem of building such kind of tools has a series of complexities that are all orbiting the concept of a governance, basically, because when you do things alone, you take your decision. When you do things along with other people, obviously, you have this problem of dealing with other people. You need special tools for relating to other people, special tools for taking decisions, and so on. So basically, the challenge behind EthereansOS is to create a set of protocols to make all this possible. And it's not an easy challenge, actually, because how to explain it? When you build an app, usually it's like I was speaking yesterday with a guy who was trying to explain my point of view. Okay, whatever relates to the human brain and to the human cognition is the concept that all our sentences are subject, predicate, and object complement. Okay, and this triplets is the basic rule that rules all the human universe. Okay, so the problem of creating application, the problem of governance, the problem of asset, the problem of protocol, everything in the end mirrors these triplets where the subject is a collectivity, the collectivity operates a given protocol in order to manipulate a set of assets or to take decision, but it's the same thing. So basically, we have these triplets in EthereansOS that is somehow...
Can I interrupt you briefly? Because I just don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. Like, I think, the problem that EthereansOS is trying to solve for is really a problem that a lot of different kind of unique tools being built right now are trying to solve for, which is how do we coordinate within the decentralized world. And so tools like Snapshot, or tools like Snapshot allows people to vote, right? Or Boardroom, or Party Round allows people to, purchase an NFT together. What else? Seed Club allows people to start kind of the frameworks of a DAO. But I think one thing that's really important to understand is that these are all kind of piecemeal solutions to this problem of how do you create a decentralized protocol, community, how do you contribute to code in a decentralized way, how do you contribute to governance in a decentralized way, how can you, be a contributor to a protocol as a member of the community. And EthereansOS is trying to solve for all of these problems that are also kind of the possibilities of Ethereum, right? In a very basic sense.
Yes. The problem is that all the dApps and all the teams usually try to take a fast place into the market. Okay, so they target, they frame a problem and they target it, trying to say, okay, now we take place, and then we will see, we can expand, we can add pieces. But I think the problem is more generic because. It's not only about creating a voting system and then adding little modules so you can vote in a different way, because this can be done in a few weeks actually. Okay, so with all the code we have now, in a few weeks we can build something like a snapshot and build it 2-3 weeks, but the most of the work is the interface and not the smart contract itself. Okay, so also
Cypher,
yes,
I want to like give the audience a really clear understanding of what EthOS is. So I'm going to interrupt you because I just want to talk about these 4 separate kind of essential things: factories, items, organizations, and covenants. And then we can talk, I think, about the larger problems that they're trying to solve. So factories is a code base, right? It's a set of smart contracts.
If you allow me, no, there are 3 areas, and factories is something, it's another thing. There are organizations that are the subject in the sentence. There is covenant that is more similar to the predicate in the sentence, and there are items that are the object complements. Factories are the shape of the system, and it's the code base for these 3 areas. Okay, so so you must keep it divided this way, in my personal opinion, because you will have factories for organizations, factories for pieces of protocols, and you will also have factories for items. Okay, so the factory is just the way the system is built, because basically what you want to do in the future is to be able, maybe I'm stepping ahead again, but you want to be able to assemble different kind of protocols, create a complex kind of assets, and create structure putting together the subject, the predicate, and the object complement in various kind of ways. So in order to be able to make this systematically, okay, you need the contracts able to generate other contracts. You need a kind of automation, like in an industry, basically, in a way that allows you to create, assemble, and then create higher level, create and assemble like in a Lego system, basically. Okay,
right.
But at the same time, to resume everything you created into a higher level Lego system. So this leads to the production of higher level factories. Okay, so the factory is just the approach. It's not one of the real 3 components of the system. The factory is the shape.
Yeah. By the way, I realized we never got to introduce JPN. JPN, do you want to introduce yourself before we get too deep?
Hi, yes. So I am JPN. I am an impassioned community member. I've been with the project basically since its inception as DFO Hub back in 2020, late 2019, early 2020.
Wow.
And I am currently a moderator in the one Telegram chat, and I'm an admin of the other one. And I am just an impassioned community member. I'm not part of any delegation, but I am there to sort of support and talk to the delegations and communicate basically what this protocol is trying to do.
Yeah. Can I just ask, like, I think it's really interesting, there are a lot of projects in crypto. There are not that many projects that I've run into that have existed since 2019 that have had, multiple different iterations of tokens, that have had, like a real kind of like long process of development, and yet have maintained such a committed core group of passionate community members. So like, what makes you so passionate about EthOS? And in a really like simple way, can you explain that? Like, can you tell us like why you're using your time to moderate the Telegram and Discord? Like, why should we care about this?
Yeah, so I got dragged into it back when it was known as DFO Hub. They were trying to be, the GitHub of crypto was sort of the one-liner that was being thrown around. And I just really liked the way they were trying to tackle some of the basic problems with how, applications and dApps and DAOs on the blockchain were being built. You had these, organizations they would launch, and then in order to upgrade anything, you'd have to basically trash everything that you had built, try to point everything to somewhere else, and rebuild it essentially if you ever wanted to upgrade a protocol. So it was really sort of painful to do any sort of upgrades in order to verify anything on chain. The way a lot of coding happens is you trust a developer that they get good code, and maybe they're pulling it from some off-chain library, some off-chain GitHub, and you just have to trust that whoever's doing that is doing a good job. And factories was sort of there to speak on factories briefly. That was sort of their idea to get around this. Rather than having to put some trust off chain, you put all the code on chain. And when you spin up a factory contract, you can see verifiably on chain that the contract that you generate inherits the main properties from that model contract in that factory. So you have a guarantee that as long as that model was audited, the thing that's coming out of that factory is an audited contract that doesn't have any security holes and is ready to perform the way it should perform.
So do you think that like my metaphor works like if I'm forking SushiSwap MasterChef, which is like the OG farming contract, that's essentially a factory, right? In this context, like the factory is kind of a base layer of audited code that can then be customized and changed, but that those core elements are trusted.
Right, and it's sort of even a better fork. With a fork, you take a basis, and then you have to go in and specifically try to make sure that you're editing the right things. Whether those are contract IDs or particular values, like if you want to change a fee structure, you have to make sure that you're going in and editing those right things. When you launch something as a factory, you make those so that it's only those contract addresses and only those fees that can be edited.
Yep.
So when things are coming out, you don't have to trust that somebody, didn't screw up while they were editing the code. You know that the code's coming out of the factory is good.
So the factory provides constraints to what can be changed when you're minting a new version of it.
Yeah, it does. There is potential to be able to upgrade and change, add functionality, but you can't, remove the core functionality or mess with that too much.
Which is why we trust it.
Exactly.
Cool. So I think that's like a really good kind of simple overview of what a factory is. So now when we say factory, people will have a sense that this is like a code base that provides customability, but also when it's kind of altered, certain things cannot be altered, so we know that it's not going to rug us, basically, and that it will function as intended.
Yeah, it is the code libraries for the blockchain, really, and it's all on the blockchain, verifiable. You can see it all, and you can trust it.
That's really cool. Could you just provide maybe a list of like some of the types of code that are built into factories, some of the like functionality, like
so? Yeah, one factory that's currently in use, and EthOS is currently using it for their organization, is it's a farming factory. So all it does is every 3 months they call up this factory and it creates a new farming contract for the next season of farming for EthOS. And I think all they really have to do is plug in, the Uniswap pool, how many, how many tokens are going to be available for the time, and end block, and it pops out a fully functioning factory, a fully functioning contract where you can go through and stake your tokens to farm and pull it out. And this factory is open to anyone who's building organizations on EthOS. So it's not limited to just the Ethereans organization. If somebody else launches an organization on EthOS and wants to do farming, well, they can call upon that same factory contract and have it, basically turn on farming for their DAO or their DApp with very, very little effort.
So say I want to take Gabagool token and create that ERC20, and then I go and provide liquidity into a Uniswap pool with ETH and Gabagool token, and then I want to allow people to provide liquidity for that pair and receive a farming incentive of Gabagool tokens. I can do all of that simply by using EthOS factory contract.
Yeah. I'm not sure if they have one to actually set up the Uniswap pool yet, but I'd imagine anyone can. Yeah. Maybe not yet, but at some point potentially.
You can do that. You can go to Covenants right now. You actually don't need to have an organization. Anyone right now can go to Covenants and you can go start a new farm setup, and all you need to do is specify a contract or a you just need to specify a vault that holds the reward tokens and what the reward token is, what the reward payout is, and what the pool is. And once you specify all those things, you can launch the pool. Anyone can go deposit and receive the funds from that vault as a reward for staking their liquidity.
So, I mean, what's really powerful about that to me is, we have these concepts like farming or staking in crypto. But I think people imagine that if they want to start a project that has some form of token incentive, they need to be a developer. But really what EthOS is trying to do, I think, is democratize access to some of these core DeFi primitives. So if you want to create a DAO that has incentivized liquidity by having a reward token that people can farm for X period of time, you can do that on EthOS with very minimal coding experience. Is that correct?
Yeah, you need zero coding experience. You can go click it together right now.
I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah, start a farm. You can start a farm right now, and you can
not
put
that
whatever.
I think everyone should start a farm, but I do think that there are situations where that can be like a really powerful tool for a community. And I generally think for adoption, like we need tools like this, right? We need people without coding experience to be able to set something up.
Yeah, and it's good not only because, it allows, normal non-developers to be able to go through and launch these things, but it also means that a developer doesn't have to spend their time doing that. They can focus on, sort of what might make their DAO or their DApp unique rather than, I have to go through and spend a week making sure that I can code a farming contract so that sort of the finances that are going behind this DAO or this DApp are taken care of. They can just do a couple of clicks on EthOS and have that part set up and spend their time coding the unique part of their DAO, their DApp, whatever decentralized program they're working on.
That's really interesting. It basically right now we have a situation where developers are involved oftentimes primarily like before launch, especially if it's like a lower tier project, right? And what you're saying is that EthOS kind of enables projects to do that basic development work without the cost of a developer, and then they can focus those developer resources on higher effort, kind of higher reward coding responsibilities.
Exactly.
That's really cool. So, Slinky, you mentioned covenants, and I feel like now might be a good time. We've talked about factories. Do you want to introduce covenants?
Yeah. So covenants are, let's see, it's the DeFi part of the Ethos ecosystem, and the things that you can do with covenants are, the original thing that covenants was is this. It's an on-chain AMM aggregator, and so. I think right now it supports Uniswap, like SushiSwap, and a few other AMMs, and it just turns it into like a modular piece. So you just have this AMM aggregator, and this aggregator you can just call, you can call trade on this one thing, and then it will it kind of provides like a universal interface for AMMs. So instead of having to,
if I'm swapping between ETH and token A, and there's fragmented liquidity for token A on Uniswap, SushiSwap, and wherever else Covenants has incorporated, it will find the best trade for
no.
me?
So it's a contract thing only. It doesn't actually like inspect the blockchain and like do the front end type stuff of like routing. It's just like it just turns AMM into this one modular piece, so that it's easier to integrate into whatever DeFi protocol you want to build. So it's really like more of a back end thing, the AMM aggregator. But
interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, like a lot of AMM aggregators, they're it's a front end aggregator. So it like has to make these individual calls to the different AMMs, and in whatever format that AMM requires. And
so by AMM aggregator, you're talking about like 1inch or Paraswap or Matcha?
Yeah. Yeah, those are like front end AMM aggregators. And so this is like this is a contract version of an AMM. I mean, aggregator, I guess, is kind of like they're used almost in different senses, because like the front, like 1inch, it basically it just searches the other AMMs to find you the best deal. And this is kind of like a thing where say you're building some DeFi protocol, and in your DeFi protocol you want to, in the Ethos organization, for example, if you want to every month or whatever, the protocol sells some OS tokens, and it immediately buys tokens for the investment fund. And so in order to do that, it needs to make a trade on Uniswap. And so it does that through this like universal AMM aggregator that's on chain. So it's kind of just
interesting.
It just provides like a universal interface to make the AMMs more Lego like in the Ethos protocol. So it's like it takes an AMM, turns it into a Lego, so that you can plug it into other parts of your organization and things like that.
Cool. I mean, I feel like I still am understanding exactly how this works, but that use case is a really good example. So this is like an automated function. So EthOS has an investment DAO kind of built on top of it, and they sell OS tokens to buy ETH to then buy whatever tokens are needed, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
And those tokens are determined by vote. And this kind of just like wraps all of the AMM action into a smart contract that is built into the front end and the back end of EthOS.
Yeah. So it's like, if you want to make a call to buy something, instead of calling the contract to buy on Uniswap, it abstracts that one level. So you just say buy, and then you pass it the parameter that's Uniswap, and so then it'll use Uniswap to buy. So Cool. It kind of like it aggregates these AMMs into like a more universal Lego.
So I feel like in the NFT community, people talk a lot about like on-chain as being a positive characteristic of certain NFT projects. I don't really hear that a lot with DeFi protocols. They'll have a link like add liquidity on SushiSwap, but essentially this is a money Lego that takes certain DeFi actions and allows you to do them on chain from within a EthOS factory contract.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Cool.
That's a cool observation for sure.
Awesome. So we've talked about factories. Now we've talked about covenants. Does anyone want to talk about items?
Yes. Can I talk?
Yeah.
Okay, so the main problem of tokens is that everyone is now creating tokens and NFTs, okay? And they are on Ethereum, of course, but they are lost on Ethereum. So Items has three potential. Items is a system or a protocol for creating tokens and NFTs. And the first potential is that instead of having infinite separated contracts, you have a singleton. And this singleton allows you, first of all, to have your contract not to be lost on Ethereum. So all the NFTs and all the tokens are accessible in the same way. With a single call, you can see all the tokens that have been created so far, all the tokens and all the NFTs, so they can emerge in the same interface. And anyone can create very easily an application able to consume all these entities. Okay. The second.
So I think like one thing that's really interesting about ETH items is that it does something that I've never seen done elsewhere, but it's also kind of hard to describe. So when you say all of the tokens, what you're talking about are, as far as I know, the three ERC token standards that are most commonly used. So ERC20, which is the most common token standard for like, wrapped ETH is an ERC20, for example. And then for NFTs, you have ERC 721 and ERC 1155. And an ETH item has functionality with all three of these. And as far as I know, all three of them can actually be wrapped within an ETH item.
Yeah, and not only do they have functionality with them, but all items are backwards compatible with things that are using those three standards. So all items can be, say, like traded on Uniswap, like ERC20 tokens. They can all be traded on OpenSeas or any other NFT marketplace as ERC, 1155s, and they even have some of the protections that ERC 1155 brings, like safe batch swaps.
One thing
I don't think anyone knows what a safe back swap is, but that sounds awesome. And just
access to all tokens, though. Yeah, to clarify your original question, what Max means is like in like Uniswap, you have a token list. That token list is curated by the front end developer who has to input all the contract addresses for all of the tokens that they want on that list. There is no way you can query Ethereum and say, give me all tokens that exist. So there's no decentralized list of tokens. And the item protocol, anything that is an item is put on chain into this list of all items that exist, so that you actually have a list of all tokens. And so that's kind of that. I think that's what he's referring to.
Well, that's interesting. But also, I mean, okay, so for instance, say I want to invest in EthOS, right? I go on Uniswap and I swap ETH for OS tokens. And then I also, after that, I'm going to check my OpenSea and I notice that I have an ETH item in my wallet that says like OS tokens. Now, that item is functional on what we think of as an NFT marketplace. So theoretically, I could list my OS tokens for sale on OpenSea.
And there are some listed on OpenSea.
It's interesting. I would have to check like the balances. And then I could also go and just trade them on, Uniswap or SushiSwap. And theoretically, I could put any ERC20, ERC 721, or ERC 1155 within an ETH item. So I could take an information token, I could put it into an ETH item, and then trade that information token like an ERC20 on Uniswap. So I could sell fractions of it.
Yes,
right?
It's a problem of fractionalization. Yeah. Exactly. You can, because when you create an item, let's say you create an NFT, okay, like a painting. This painting satisfies both the standard of the NFT and the standard of the typical standard token. So this NFT, you can sell parts of the NFT, if you was a percentage, and the one who owns 51% of the simple token form, okay, is the one who controls the wallet NFT, basically. So it's an easy way if you have any kind of NFT, or you want to let's say fractionalize an artwork, you can mint an NFT with item. Otherwise, an existing NFT can be wrapped into an item, and you obtain basically a wrapper that is fractionalized and then controlled by this second face. It's like the two faces of a medal. Okay, one face is the NFT, so the other face is the fractionalized token.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like today, I was going to look and see like what have people put into items, and people have put tons of different things. And looking at the OpenSea page for ETH items, which I will note needs to be what's it called, verified on OpenSea. There are scam collections. You can see all the things that people have put in. So I could put a tubby cat in, like someone did. And when I put that tubby cat, I think I can also decide like what the supply is if it's traded as an ERC20. Is that correct?
Yes, I think so. So
okay.
Repeat the example. Excuse me. You can take a CryptoPunk if you want. Okay, you wrap it if you own a CryptoPunk. You wrap it into an item, and you say, okay, guys, now you can buy 1% if you want. Okay, at that point, there's a plethora of people who are in the position to buy the token, the resulting fractionalized token. Okay, so if you was your CryptoPunk, the results in splittable infinite times if you want, and you can take this token and sell them on Uniswap basically. Okay, so you can each NFT becomes a potential market. I don't know how to explain it.
It's basically like combining what fractional is doing with the power of something that can also be sold on OpenSea. So you know how Sisyphus fractionalized his rock. The result is an ERC20. What ETH items would have allowed him to do is both fractionalize that rock and have people trade it as NFTs if they wanted to, or in that context, and in the context of DeFi tokens. That's at least how I see it. Yeah.
So one thing to note is that when you have these items, they're not, you don't get an ERC20 and then you also get an NFT. It's one thing. It's like I think they're called items because it's more abstract. Like it's an item that has these different interfaces, these faces. So it's a more abstract object that can then plug into these different ERC20 interfaces, NFT interfaces, because those, like NFT, if you have some NFT protocol like OpenSea, it will try to call certain functions on the object. And if those functions are there, then it can call the functions on the object. And so when you wrap something, it adds these functions that might not exist on an ERC20. It adds the ERC 721 functions so that those can be called on it. And it has to have a certain way to handle, the intricacies, like, integer numbers or whatever. And so the way it handles that is that if you own 51% of the token, then when you call the integer things that are asking if you own the token, if you own 51%, that registers as you having one. And cool. The other cool thing is that the item protocol can be upgraded and you can add other faces to it. So you can, in the future, if there's some new ERC standard that becomes ubiquitous, then people can, we can add that face to the item and allow these items to plug into things that use that standard as well.
So essentially, item is a meta token standard that enables interaction with every single kind of token standard that is, included within it, and can accept new token standards. Like I know Yearn recently made a new Vault token standard that could theoretically be incorporated into an item, and it gives you the functionality of every token standard that is it accepts.
Yes,
Yes,
correct.
and
But
it also
there is more.
yeah.
There is more because there are the
Well,
same.
let's just. I don't want to go too deep into everything. We're gonna do other talks. I just want to like touch today on the surface level. There's tons to go into about all of these various tools, but I think it's hard for people to grasp it if you go too in the weeds. So I want to make sure that we have time today to also talk about organizations,
Okay.
which is, organizations is what led to this conversation. So
yes, but sorry if I interrupt you. The most important thing of items is that everyone creates his own tokens and tries to give specific functionalities, okay, by modifying the standard contract. Therefore, all the contracts are in standard. That's the problem of tokens you find on the blockchain, okay? Instead, items keep divided the standard logic of the token and the further intelligence you want to add to the token. So they can be intelligent, they can be extended by an extension. And this is the going back to the problem of factories, okay? Not only you are able to create with a click a new kind of asset, but you can also choose in the future what kind of extension you add. And this is the modularity applied to token, okay? So you can have assets that are smart assets, in few words. And every developer can create its own extension. And by creating its own extension, make it available via the factory to any other noob who isn't able to create smart contract and to add the special functionalities and special intelligence to an asset. Okay, so this is, to me personally, the most important part of items, okay, because they keep split the intelligence and the database logic of the asset.
For a quick example on that, you take some ERC20 that's not standard and it has some, fee on transfer, something that's extra to the ERC20. When you wrap it, it strips away those extra functions. And if it's an item, it's just an ERC20. You can transfer it. You don't have to worry about those any extra functionality. And so when you build an item, any additional functionality to the ERC20 is going to be like its own modular contract to that. So you can wrap something, be safe that it's an ERC20. It standardizes the standard, so to speak.
Exactly. Not only, but you could have an item that is a smart wallet, an item that is a vault like the one you described 1 minute ago. Okay, made by another project. An item that has another extensions and behaves like a factory itself. So it depends. Extensions are smart contract. Okay, so imagine to have assets that are smart, where you can add the intelligence, substitute the intelligence, connect assets together, because at that point they are modular smart pieces of a Lego system. Okay, so I really imagine in the future dApps built by simply connecting together items. So they are it's an abstraction that goes beyond the concept of token. Okay, it's pieces for building things. This is what I
think that's kind of a general theme of EthOS is the modularity and the customability, and that everything within this system is allows people to build things and to get creative with tools that exist. But we don't have a lot more time today, so I want to make sure that we touch on organizations. So for transparency's sake, I was approached by a organization within EthOS, the Ethereans Community organization that Rudy is here from, and to help use kind of my platform to inform people about this technology. Now, I, generally speaking, have a rule that I don't do paid marketing at all. I was open to working with EthOS because I authentically think this is an incredibly powerful toolkit for builders in DeFi and in DAOs and in NFTs. And I think that more people should know about it. And so I've agreed, and we're going to be doing some Twitter spaces together. This won't be the last one. But I was wondering, maybe JP, and you can just give a brief overview of what is an organization and why should we care about them?
So organizations are basically what DAOs strive to be, but they are modular, fully on chain with good decentralized governance. And Ethereans OS, the project is actually an organization themselves. They're using the tools that they built. And just to show you a little bit of the power of it, a couple of weeks ago, back in February, Ethereans OS was upgrading their protocol to add delegations. And delegations are basically supports for organizations. And that's what Ethereans Community and Cypher's Party are. But they wanted to go ahead and perform this upgrade. And the way things are set up right now, the token holders of Ethereans have complete control over whether an upgrade passes or not. And so the developers proposed an upgrade. They put it on chain, and they went through and we had a vote. And you could stake your Ethereans tokens towards the vote, either yes or no. And we could watch this happen live through like Etherscan, and I built a little web app just to show how our vote was going. And after somewhere between like 8 and 12 hours, the vote passed. And as soon as it passed, it was executed on chain without the developers having to touch anything. And the upgrade was rolled out and implemented minutes later. So it's radically different from, like, if you imagine doing this similar thing with a DAO, you might have some sort of straw poll that may or may not be on or off chain. Once that passes, you have to go through and find your developers and contact them all, and then they all have to sign on and sign on a multi-sig. And then once they do that, and that part's not happening on chain, it's off chain. People are getting on Discords and calls and trying to rally them. It's radically different from this. Put it on, do on-chain voting, and when it's passed, it automatically executes and is upgraded on-chain.
Yeah. I mean, this is radically different. I'm involved in a number of projects, and some of the projects I'm involved on really rely, like, I have to rely on my own reputation, the trust that people place in me, whether that means custodying funds and people kind of trusting, like, oh, Gabagool's not going to rug me, and like, I'm not going to rug them, but it's also a very imperfect system. And what I love about this is it's a transparent relationship between developers and community members. And there's this kind of myth in DeFi and NFTs that community members are real owners, right, of the protocol that they've invested in. But EthOS seems to actualize that, to make it really tangible, in that your vote materially decides whether an update is pushed live or not. And I think that's like a real, like, radical manifestation of the principles of decentralization.
Yeah, and as the token holders, we have access to make other smaller proposals, like what we're putting into the investment funds, the amount of ETH that we're trying to put into, the investment fund, what tokens they're buying with it. We can write up a proposal and say, hey, I think it would be better to invest in this list of tokens here. And we can make that proposal, and people can vote on that proposal without the devs having any say in it, essentially.
So is the investment fund a delegation?
The investment fund, no, that is part of the organization.
Okay, so it's part of the EthOS organization.
Yeah, if I can jump on that, because we talked about transparency, and transparency is a very fundamental part of delegations as well, because JPN touched base on it, but essentially delegations are independent entities that sit underneath organizations such as EthereansOS, and they're basically designed to be the engine behind the growth of an organization and everything that surrounds them. So what that means is that anyone can open an organization at any point, and they can vary in nature drastically. So in this particular case, Ethereans Community is a delegation focused on marketing and brand awareness for EthereansOS. So we build social media channels where we talk about the project in the easiest possible language that people can understand. We've got a YouTube channel where we provide content, and as we try to also build this partnership like we did with yourself, ultimately to drive knowledge about this project altogether. But in the Cypher Party case, for example, they are also a delegation, but they're doing something completely different, and they can tell you more about what they do, but they're more focusing around building hackathons, and they're more engaging like the development community, right? The common denominator between all delegations is that they all work towards adding value and help the adoption of the organization that they represent. As I said, anyone can open one, but ultimately the organization underneath they sit, they are the ones that vet each individual delegation.
And they distribute funds, right? Like people who hold OS tokens decide how much funding Ethereans Community should get per time frame.
Yeah, the way it works is that the organization have got their own treasury, and that treasury will grow depending on a number of different factors. And all of the approved delegations, they basically compete for token holder support, which is ultimately essential for them to win a portion of the grant money they set aside from the organization, right? So this treasury that we're talking about. The amount that we secure as a delegation is based literally on the percentage of token holders who choose to stake their tokens on our delegation.
Very cool.
So, yeah, and once the funds are actually distributed, the transparency that I was talking about exists, because whenever we decide that we want to make a spend, say for example we want to buy a slot on a influencer YouTube video, or we want to pay for a press release or a banner on a website or anything like that, which in our case is marketing, we essentially need to put a proposal out to our community saying, we want to release X amount of Ethereum because we want to be doing X, Y, and Z. Are you happy for us to do that? Token holders will be voting towards this proposal, and if we get a majority vote, I think actually it's a 40% that you need for it to go past, then those funds, they get released, and then we are able to invest them in the way that we proposed.
Very, very cool. I think that level of transparency and kind of community involvement in something like marketing is really rare. Usually you have a team that has, their own marketing capabilities. And I think also, what EthOS is trying to do is pretty radical. And I understand why people find EthOS to be confusing, because it's not like a simple meme token. It's a set of tools that enables building within a certain kind of like ideological framework of decentralization. And it really prioritizes that at every single level. And I think that's amazingly powerful. But I also think it can be hard to grasp. And I really appreciate everyone here taking the time to go through those basic structures. So before we wrap up, I just want to remind people today we've talked about the kind of 4 different protocols that EthOS emerges out of: factories, which is a code base for a decentralized operating system; items, which are dynamic tokens that work with all applications across crypto; organizations, which are granular governance vehicles for various different projects and purposes. We also mentioned delegations, which are like sub-organizations kind of. And then covenants, which are DeFi tools built on an AMM aggregator. So we're going to be doing a series of conversations about EthOS, about what these kind of tools enable builders to do. I think next time, one of my goals is really to hear from people building on top of EthOS. And, I would love to talk to also some team members to hear about, why they're doing this. But I just want to thank, Rudy, Slinky, JPN, and Cypher Party, everyone for joining me today. And yeah, I'm not sure. Are there any questions from our audience? Because we do have a little bit of time. If anyone has a question for anyone up here. It looks like there are no takers. So yeah, thank you all so much for coming, and I really look forward to continuing the conversation about EthOS.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us. It was great to chat. A couple of days from now, there'll be a release actually for an upgrade from items called Deck. So hopefully we'll get the chance of talking about that very soon.
Sounds great. Yeah, I'm excited for that. And yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.